Please come on in and have a seat. Welcome to the Skokie School District 73.5 Board of Education Forum. My name is Katie Hollenberg and I'm the president of MCMEA, the teachers union here in our district. I would like to start by thanking all of you who are here tonight. We really appreciate your attendance. We're so glad that you're participating in this process. We also want to thank the League of Women Voters of Evanston for partnering with us and giving us so much support. We want to thank Michael Torres and his crew for helping us with setup. And thank you to the teachers and parents who have given countless hours of their time and energy to make this night happen. Lastly, thank you to the candidates for being so willing to serve our district. As you can see, this is being videotaped. We are having it put up on YouTube and then hopefully put to our district's Twitter, and it will also be on the MCMEA webpage. At this time, I would like to introduce Kathy Tate Bradish, an experienced moderator from the League of Women Voters of Evanston, who resides outside the District 73.5. Kathy will review the rules of the forum. Thank you again.
Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I'm going to read you our League of Women Voters nonpartisanship statement, and then I'm going to vote. So I'm going to read the nonpartisanship statement, then I'm going to go over some rules, and then we're going to start. So the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any levels of government. The League encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League works to register voters and provide voters with election information through voter guides, as well as candidate forums like this one. Our members are women, men, and gender non-binary people of every age, race, background, and political perspective who believe that informed citizens are the key to effective government. So we're so pleased to be partnering with this candidate forum tonight. I'm going to go over a few rules. Thanks to Elizabeth Meyer School for hosting. Thanks to MCMEA for sponsoring. The League of Women Voters obviously for organizing and for inviting me to come and be your moderator. The candidates have agreed to all of these rules, and I'll just say here that I know no one would even think of doing this, but if you happen to boo someone or break into raucous applause, we're going to know who you support or don't support, and you're just going to make your own candidate look bad, right? So we won't do that. No noisemakers. Back when I first started doing this, I always had to say no pagers. Also, no political literature or buttons. And be sure, silence your phones right now. I know everybody thinks their phone is silenced, but now you're a little anxious, right? So check it again, silence your phones now. Your candidates are each going to get 1 minute to introduce themselves. At the end, they'll get 1 minute to close. In the middle, they'll get 1.5 minutes, each candidate for each question, and each candidate will answer all of the same questions. So the candidates know that they don't need to fill all of the time, and if they agree with a previous candidate, they could feel free to say so, but more importantly, they will not run over their time. So we've got some nice timekeepers down in the front, wave, and when that stop sign goes up, the candidates know that they're just going to finish with a couple of sentences, not with a deep breath that would allow them to dive the coral reefs, and not with a bunch of dependent clauses. They'll just be done. Because the idea of this forum is that we get through as many questions as possible. Save your applause for the very end. Don't even applaud opening statements. I know it seems kind of weird. Things can become sort of contests, and also it takes a long time. It takes passion and guts, and these days, as we all know in this political climate, especially guts to run for office. So we're going to be extremely respectful, give the candidates all of the respect that they deserve. Many of you have already gotten an index card and written a question. If you still have the question, you can put it up in the air. It hasn't been turned in yet. If you think of a question and don't have an index card, put your hand up, and one of our runners will come and give you an index card and a pencil. You can write the question, and then they'll come and collect it. It's going to go to the card sorters. So this is what we need from you. Your best printing, no matter how good you think your handwriting is, no. Your best printing, because if it comes up to me, I'm going to need to be able to read it, has to be the right level of government, so something that a school board could vote on. We might all care what their Syria policy thoughts are, but keep it to District 73 and a half. If there are duplicates, we might combine questions that might sound a little familiar to your question, and maybe we put a couple together. No personal attacks. The best questions are capable of being answered by everyone. I might need to change the order. They're going to be brought up to me as they come in. As soon as the sorters are sure about them, they're going to bring them up to me. We never ever get all of them answered. We especially aren't going to get all of them answered with 7 candidates. And all of your candidates have told us that they can stay afterwards to answer your questions. So save them, remember it if your question doesn't get answered, because they'll be delighted to address any issues that you have. So here we go. Your candidates are seated in the order in which they drew. Candidate number 1 is going to give her opening statement first. And then, just so you know, and I'll remind you and myself and the candidates as we go, we do a thing where we go along and sometimes we switch it. So anyway, Ms. Amaiwala is going to give her opening statement first. She has 60 seconds, timers.
I'm number 7. You still want me to go first?
Oh my gosh, no, of course not. I've got my list here. It's to keep me organized. So what are we, 6 minutes into the forum? Usually I'm about halfway through I do this. So Ms. Nelson, please.
Thank you all for being here. Who am I? I'm Kelly with an I, and I am running for school board because I believe that the board is the bridge between the school and the community. I believe that I have a unique voice that is often underrepresented on school boards. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a child with an IEP. I'm an African American woman. I'm an educator. I'm a department head. I have administrative licensing, and I'm a member of your community and a taxpayer. My unique voice and my extensive experience allows me to be able to represent a broad spectrum of this community. As a board member, my principal goals would be to champion complete transparency for all stakeholders so they have an appropriate view and input, to deliver on our commitments to diversity and equity, to expand our home and school partnerships, and to finally ensure that our teachers and support staff have the support, professional development, and the voice that they need in our district to work so hard for our children. In short, I believe and love this community. I want to be a part of it, and I want to do my part.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
Hi, my name is Carla. My wife and I bought a home in Skokie 8 years ago, and we have one child going to kindergarten here. It is my love for my child and for our community that has motivated me to run for school board. In addition to that, I grew up as a part of some marginalized communities. I have a single mom, I have a little brother with Down syndrome, I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm Hispanic. I've seen what it's like to have a system work for you and what it's like for a system to leave you behind. And I'm running for school board to make 73 and a half a more equitable system that works for all students and families. I believe we can do this by opening up lines of communication between all parties involved, not only listening to those who show up, but actively seeking those who have stopped showing up because our actions in the past have led them to believe they will not be heard. I believe our conversations need to be open and honest to gain transparency around the decisions made in the district so we can hold people accountable for decisions that affect our children and our schools. And when those decisions affect how money is being spent, I want to help ensure all financial decisions are made in the best interest of the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wash.
My name is John Wash. My family and I moved to Skokie going on 4 years in June. I have a wonderful, supportive wife, Amy, and 3 awesome children, Taylor, having 4th grade, and Kinley, a 2nd grader. I'm a second career educator of 6 years, spending 2 of those years as a teacher's aide at Middleton Elementary. Currently, I'm a middle school language arts teacher at a charter school in the city whose primary demographic is made up of refugee and immigrant students. I also hold a master's degree in English second language. Before becoming an educator, I spent 20 years working in the accounting field, excelling up the corporate ladder from accounting clerk to CFO. And I'm hoping that with my background in education and the county that I can help take this district to the next level.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
Thank you to McMia, the League of Women Voters, and to my fellow candidates for being here and arranging this wonderful evening. Currently, I am the Vice President of the school board and have served for 4 years. During that time, the board has successfully reached the objectives of the previous strategic plan and worked with the community to develop a new strategic plan that will bring to the district increased opportunities in STEM, various increases in diversity with staffing, and essentially we are looking for opportunities that, through a collaboration with you, meet the needs of all of the students in this district. The reason why I'm running is because I really believe that I am the right person to help lead and execute the plan that we built together with the community.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
Hi, I'm Bissett Levy, and I'm running for re-election in 73.5, and my goal is to continue the work that I've started for the past 2 years as a board member. My goal is to help to see our school district continue to be a 21st century school district.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
Hi. Hello. My name is Paul Easton. My wife's name is Janet. I've got 2 kids in the district. I live that way, about a block and a half. And when I was walking over here, I was thinking about Karen Wiley, actually. Because when we moved here, she was still teaching here. She's a Golden Apple teacher. And it was one of the reasons we moved into the district. What can I say about myself? I've been teaching for about 24 years. I have a master's degree in education administration. I teach up in Trier. I am a poetry writing major. That thing exists. And I can get a job successfully. I hope I'll keep that job. And I'm running for the school board just to help out where I can, because I care a lot about the schools.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Amawala.
Hi, my name is Bushra Amiwala, and I've lived in Skokie for over 12 years and am a product of District 73.5 schools. I'm the first Pakistani Muslim woman to ever get my name on a ballot in the United States, and this has led me to be the recipient of the Public Peace Ambassador Award for the United Nations, Glamour Magazine's College Woman of the Year, and my personal favorite, Scholastic Magazine's Changemaker of the Year, because that's a magazine I used to read in social studies here at Middleton. My background is in civic engagement, political organizing, and nonprofit management. I've returned to each respective school many times to give presentations on civic engagement and activism, and also as a volunteer. I currently serve on the board of directors for 4 national organizations, and collective experience as a board member totals to over 10 years. I've been able to bring forth innovative solutions and a voice to a table that has been underrepresented, which is what I seek to do on the Board of Education. My passion for giving back to the community comes from genuine appreciation for all that Skokie and District 73.5 has done for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, Ms. Arias will take the first question first, and everyone will have a chance to answer. So here it is. And candidates, I forgot to say this, but if at any point you want me to reread a question, I'm happy to do it. If you are elected, how will you collaborate and get feedback from students, parents, and teachers and administrators to ensure transparency?
Thank you for asking that question. This is one of those things that I think is one of the most important things. We are all part of the community. When we really take a look at our kids, when I look at who teaches my kid every day, I'm so in awe of what the teachers do here every day. I don't see a reason why we can't, send a bridge out and really talk to the teachers to find out what they're looking for. I know that I've spent some time out in the community lately. I've been able to talk to some members of the community and will continue to do so. So really just going out there and really listening to what the parents have to say, and even the children themselves, especially when they get to the older grades. Because I know my child doesn't have much to offer, as far as that goes. She's 6. I'm sure she has. So I just think it's really important that we get perspectives from every single person that's involved in the decision making for our children. That's really all I have to say. I think it's really important to collaborate for our kids. We need to do that for their sake.
Thank you. Mr. Wash.
As far as the community goes, I think what we need is some kind of community outreach program that can be spearheaded by the board. I think that would do well in building trust and also building transparency between the board and the community. I've been fortunate enough to work in the district for 2 years, and in those 2 years I've met hundreds of students that I still keep pretty good relationships with now, and in addition to staff. And so I think with that in mind, I can use that to my advantage. I think I've built a rapport where there's trust between me and the staff members. I think I've built a rapport with the students, and I just think that can be an advantage for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
So as a board, we look to put together structures in place that are equitable. So what we're not trying to do, or what I would not try to do, is necessarily try to find answers myself personally. I would collaborate with my board to figure out what are the types of systems we need to use to find answers to things. So for example, maybe it would be through surveys, it would be through open forums such as this. One example that was recently implemented in the district is we started to put the board packet online so everyone could be reading the things that they were allowed to read. So essentially it puts the community in the same position as the board, trying to be as transparent as possible, and also allowing for board meetings to be a place where people can bring feedback to the board. What you don't want is to have your biases come in and influence who you are asking questions about. So it's constantly about checking that everyone has an opportunity to speak, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, or whether you're a community member.
Thank you. And let's just take a second. There are some people standing in the back. I don't know if they'd like to sit, but if you have an empty chair next to you, would you just put your hand up for a sec, and then folks will know. Oh, look at it. It looks packed, but there are plenty of seats. If you want to mosey on down, why don't you do that? Okay, and now Mr. Levy.
What I think I would want to promote is more community forums, similar to the one that we had about a month ago. As a board, we kind of, our job is the governance for the administration of the school district. But I think as a board, we can do a better job of reaching out to teachers and to students to get feedback from them. And I would advocate for us to go more in that direction.
Thanks. Mr. Easton?
So I've had a lot of experience in schools. One of the things I would say about schools is that if you want to know how a school functions, pay attention to the open doors in the building. So when you walk by the administrator's offices, are their doors open? Are they welcoming places? Are they places where people can get in and talk? So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that listening is very, very important, at least from a board standpoint, to be able to stop yourself long enough to just listen and to hear what people are saying, to ask them follow-up questions. I think that's really important. Doors, open doors, look for them.
Thank you. Ms. Amiwala?
So there is a national initiative that District 67, District 65, and a couple other schools in Winnetka and Evanston are a part of called Community Schools. And this is an integrated focus on academics, social services, and community development, which all leads to improved student learning. So since this national nonprofit provides a model which prevents an operating structure with steering committees filled with parents, students, teachers, and community members. This structure is what I've already implemented in my campaign with multiple advisory committees. So I currently have a parent advisory committee, community member advisory committee, and diversity and inclusion advisory committee. I did create a teacher advisory committee, but there was a little conflict of interest and I'm still a candidate, so I didn't really get responses from that. However, I've received over 50 individual survey responses. So it's already a testament to the way I've run my campaign, and I hope to do so when selected onto the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Ms. Nelson takes the first question last.
This whole mic holding thing is kind of precarious, okay? So, just so you know. So, the question's asked, how would I work to collaborate with transparency with all of these multiple groups? And all of these individual groups have very different and individual needs. For example, students. I bet if we polled a lot of students in this school district right now, they probably don't even know who their board members are. And so one of the things that we need to do is build a bridge to them. To steal a page out of D219, one of the most refreshing things I heard at the most recent forum is the idea about breakfast with the board. Like amazing, think about how amazing that would be to have a bunch of kids coming in and talking to the board members about what they experience every day as students in our schools. Teachers, for example, in most board meetings, a lot of the conversation that goes on between teachers and boards is about union issues or policy issues, but how much do we really listen to just the teachers, their feelings, their perspectives, their needs, their desires, their hopes, their inspirations? So opening up that dialogue to just listen to them would be also helpful. And parents, yes, I agree that community forums are helpful, but maybe smaller community forums where there can actually be a reciprocal conversation. A lot of people ask questions and we're hoping to hear back from their board. Creating those opportunities would be also helpful for those stakeholders. And so just being able to find ways to be creative, to have conversations, to work together, to build solutions, to make sure that we are all working for our children.
Thank you. So now we skip down. Mr. Walsh takes the next question first. What is one board vote or decision from the last 3 years that you agree or disagree with, and give the reasons for your position?
So one of the decisions that the board made was the fight to keep fourth grade, the fight to keep fourth grade with 5 classes instead of 4. And they chose 4. Studies show that the more students in a classroom, that the less the teacher has to offer each student and meet the needs of each student. And so I think that was one of the big things that I disagree with.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
We're sitting in it. It was basically the agreements to create this beautiful school that we are in. I 100% agree with it. If you look at what we were educating the community in prior, we had teachers in their offices in the closet. We had differentiated instruction happening with divider walls where 2 students were receiving differentiated instruction in the same room. We also brought in students from NTSD to the district, which increases the amount of diversity that we have across the student population, and it gives a greater amount of exposure to students, to other types of people.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
The investment that we've made in technology, specifically Chromebooks, because that has a huge impact and some of the things that you can do with curriculum.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
Can you clarify the question? Is it agree or disagree or either one?
Well, it's what's one board vote or decision from the last 3 years that you agree or disagree with, and why you think that?
Thanks. So there's one that I don't want to talk about. There is one that I do want to talk about, which is the class size, which John Walsh has already mentioned. And I spoke publicly about that. I wrote a letter. I read it at the board. I believe that class size is the golden standard for education. It's not the most important thing, but it is an important thing. I think the most important thing is relationship with teachers. I think teachers are where the rubber hits the road in education, in terms of relationships. So that number of size and class size does matter. The board, despite the community speaking out about the decision to reduce, or rather not expand the number of classes for the 4th grade, I think was unfortunate. I think we asked for a rationale and we didn't get one.
Thank you. Ms. Amawala?
The vote in passing of standards reference grading is something that I agree with. This model of education is one that was in my advanced math courses when I was at Niles North. And this progressive model of education is one that is sweeping the nation and focuses on learning objectives and specific aspects of curriculum as opposed to just letter grades. It makes it so students are aware of where they can improve and where they are doing well, as opposed to just getting an A or a B and not really looking into what can be done in that regard. Again, this model of education is one that I'm glad that District 73.5 is also implemented into our curriculum and education as well.
Thank you. Ms. Melson.
So I'm going to buck the trend here, and I'm going to give you both. I'm going to give you one thing that I agree with and one thing I didn't agree with. I'm going to agree with Paul and John about the reduced class sizes. I think whenever you reduce class sizes, and whenever you reduce classes, and you increase class sizes, that presents some issues that we don't necessarily want for our students. But one thing that I want to say that I agree with was our most recent board meeting, the board voted to extend STEM programming in McCracken and add a robotics club. And I think that is so important because our students are going to Niles North, and there are 2 districts currently that are in the Classrooms First program that already have a robotics program. And so our goal here is to make sure that when our students leave here, they can compete, that when they enter D219, they have had the same opportunities. So expanding into that idea of having a robotics club, we are making sure that we are preparing our students for that. And one other thing I agree with, sorry. I have a lot of friends in this room right now who have students that have dietary issues. And so the recent conversations about the menu and making sure we change menu options for our students is also something that I want to say I support, because we need to be equitable in that as well.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
Hi, I'm not going to be original. I also agree with what John said, and Paul, I believe you said it as well. One of the votes that I disagreed with was when we voted to, effectively we voted to increase class sizes for 4th graders. And, I'm married to a teacher. I see how hard teachers work. And, even when I see the teachers that Millie has right now, it really takes a lot for them to get individualized. They give the kids individualized attention and make them feel really special. When you increase those class sizes, you're taking that away. And, I came from a district that had really big class sizes. So I saw people that had accelerated test scores do really well, and I saw people fall through the cracks as well. That's not really something that I agree with at all, and I just think it was really an unfortunate decision made.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Lemke will take this question first. Where do you stand with regard to financial transparency, including, and I'll read this again for whoever needs it, where does fundraising money go? Approving loans that kept taxes from going down without community input, consolidation of Skokie school districts, reducing the number of administrators. I'm just going to read it again right now, okay? And I'll read it again later. Yeah, because it's all about finances, okay? Transparency. Where do you stand with regards to financial transparency, including where does fundraising money go? Approving loans that kept taxes from going down without community input. Consolidation of Skokie school districts. Reducing the number of administrators. All right, Mr. Lemke, minute and a half.
First, I'd like to say thank you for the question. Okay, so there's a couple elements to this question. One is just about this notion of transparency, and then there's also some policy questions that are kind of sub-bullets in that discussion. So we'll try to take them one by one. On to the question of transparency, period. I think we should try to be as transparent as possible, and I believe the district is doing that. I mean, you can see now in the way that we're posting the board packets, the financial portion of that, and you can see itemized elements of where the money is going. Parlaying that into this notion of where fundraising is going, I don't know what fundraising is happening necessarily in the district by the district, so I don't know if that's something the district is overseeing.
All right, so I'm not going to answer all these questions right now in this time. I have a lot to say. One thing I will say, well, I'll say a couple things. One of which is that the state of Illinois and the way we fund our schools is one of the most inequitable systems in the entire United States. It is horrible. I spent countless hours traveling down to Springfield and talking to state legislatures about this. I've had articles published about this, and I could go on, and I won't right now. What I will say is that these issues aren't entirely unrelated. I canvassed for the referendum back in 2003. Ann O'Malley, who's here, asked me to do that, and I did that. When I spoke at the board, I mentioned that you can't make decisions that inherently alienate your constituency, especially when so much of the funding that goes into a school is tied so closely to our dollars. And there's just so much to say about that. In terms of PTA involvement, for example, a PTA that we really need to have if you expect there to be transparency, it's just not here anymore. And I think that's really unfortunate when I think about the ways in which parents had raised funds, the way in which the administration had communicated with the community, and where it needs to go from there. I'll talk more later.
Thank you. Ms. Amiwala.
Thank you. Could we repeat the question? There was.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Just waiting for someone to ask. Where do you stand with regard to financial transparency, including where does fundraising money go? Approving loans that kept taxes from going down without community input. Consolidation of Skokie school districts. Reducing the number of administrators.
Oh, actually, you had it all written down. All right. In terms of financial transparency, I would be surprised if anyone just today, one of these candidates said that they were against transparency, right? But it's sort of a matter of like anyone can say that they advocate for transparency, but what systems can we put in place to ensure that's there? Yes, we can have the budget online, we can have our expenditures and where money is going, where it's spending, but I think breaking it down into everyday colloquial language so people can understand where the money is being spent is where the differentiation lies. So people who come from immigrant families, non-native English speakers can understand where the money is being spent. In terms of fundraising, I think from my personal experience, I recall individual groups within each respective school fundraise for their own specific purposes. I don't see why this lies in the board's jurisdiction to ask them to release where that money is being spent. For example, for band, parents will fundraise for band in particular. I don't think it's the board's jurisdiction to say where in band are you spending this money exactly. In terms of approving loans without community input, I've already said that I'm a huge advocate for making sure all voices in the community are being heard and represented, and approving a loan without that input just seems like something no one would agree with either. And decreasing the number of administrators, I think again, it comes down to where do we see an influx of administrators right now, and if there is a need to decrease, and that's a conversation that must be had based on that. And then finally, consolidation of school districts. Instead of doing that, again, this community schools initiative is one that we should jump on because it's a matter of sharing resources without combining. Because the thing is, okay, I'll stop.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson.
Keep going. So I just want to say that I agree with a lot of what Bushra and Paul both said. When I listen to this question, I want to say this is a really hard question for a non-current board member to answer, just because it involves a lot of inside information that we haven't been privy to yet. However, what I will say is that if we are fundraising for something, that money should absolutely go to what we are fundraising for. We should not be fundraising for band, for example, and then asking our PTA or our PTO, which we currently don't have, which is a transparency issue, to then allocate those funds to something else. We're not being honest with what we're doing with that money. When I think about this question is really rooted in transparency and communicating more with our community and our constituents. I agree with Bushra, make the language accessible, but also open up the doors to what we are doing so that people have an idea of why we need the money, where the money is going, what the long-term impacts of that money is going to be on our homes, on our taxes. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
This is what I do every day. I look at budgets, and I happen to look over the current school budget, actually for the last 2 years. It doesn't look like a balanced budget currently. With a district that is so heavily funded by taxpayers, I'm a homeowner, I know what our property taxes look like. I think it's so vitally important to be transparent with where funds are going and what the end goal is with these funds. We should really be getting more community involvement for everything from, fundraising money, approving loans, just making sure the community understands where the money that they've worked really hard for is going. And just to, piggyback on Bushra, what she said about, when you look at that budget, it does look like a completely different language, just generally speaking. And it's really hard for even me to discern. So just making it so much more accessible and really breaking it down for people would be, I think, super helpful for non-native English speakers and English, regular English speakers alike. I think it's really important that we get more community involvement in the way funds are being spent in the district.
Thank you. Mr. Wash.
I agree with a little bit of what everyone has said up here. As far as reducing the number of administrators, I think I would like to know what's the end result of that. Why? As far as consolidating school districts, this has come up in previous meetings. It was told to us that District 73.5 doesn't offer much because we don't have businesses. I hope that's not the case, and I think that that's something that if the board going forward would like to do, I hope that's something that we can explore and try to make that happen. As far as approving loans without the consent of the community, that's just wrong. The community needs to know, especially as taxpayers, since we're not getting revenue from businesses, where the money is going. And the same goes for fundraising.
Thank you. So I kind of gave the candidates a heads up on this. We're going to see if I manage it. We're going to switch the order just for this question and go backwards, just so the candidates don't have to follow the same person every single time. So we can give it a try. Mr. Levy will start, and then we're going to go in the other order. So Mr. Levy, how would you address issues of equity in our district, including staff diversity?
As you can see by what I'm wearing, today is the last day of Black History Month in District 202 where I work, and as a celebration of Black History Month, our staff, who are part of what we call the Black Caucus, we decided to wear African garb. One of my colleagues is sitting in the front. So, from my standpoint, I know that in this school district, that is definitely something that we need to address. Unfortunately, if you take the approach of saying, oh yeah, we need to have X number of minority staff in, you have to keep in mind the fact that, unless there's people who have actually left the district and you're trying to replace those people, and you are mindful of who you're hiring to replace them, that is something that will take a certain amount of time. So I completely agree that our district needs to be completely, take a look at how diverse we are, but I know that it does take time, but I feel like we're going in the right direction in terms of how we're going about trying to be diverse.
Thank you. So Mr. Lemke will take this question now.
So this is a very important topic in the district, especially at this time. There's been a lot of conversations around it, and I would like to explain some of the things the district has been doing in order to increase equity, diversity within the staff. We've been reaching out to universities, particularly Northeastern University, to try to build a pipeline of more diverse candidates that are coming in and applying for jobs within the district. We've also been implementing trainings within the district that promote acceptance with diversity within our staff and working students, so that we have a culture within our building that's supportive of many different types of cultures. The superintendent Kate Donegan, has also been promoting a program called SEED. If you guys haven't heard that, I really recommend looking into it. That builds a village-wide community that is respectful of various different and diverse cultures. Because really it's about attracting candidates to the community and also the district in order to make sure that we have a staff that represents the diversity of our student population. The last thing I'll say is, in the last 4 to 5 years, we've actually seen a large increase in the number of educators that speak Urdu or are Assyrian. And it's showing a positive trend within the district to try to bring candidates of various backgrounds. And we also need to make sure we're retaining talent that we currently have.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
I've had this conversation several times with colleagues as well as parents. I would like to first say that our district has exceptional teachers who have been able to make a connection and build trust amongst the students and parents. And that's why they're so successful. With that being said, we're not talking about getting rid of the teachers that we have. We're talking about building for the future. And one way is by broadening the teacher candidate pool, by partnering with other universities, like Mike said. And in NEIU, Northeastern Illinois, would be a great university to partner with because it's a little bit more diverse than Loyola. And I went to both. Attend job fairs. You know, I don't know if that's something that the administration of our district does on a regular basis, but if not, you know, we need to be in the city trying to recruit the best that the city has to offer.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
Thank you. You know, I believe equity is the lens through which we should look at all issues. By listening to different voices in the community, it really helps us identify areas of inequity. That includes ability, right? So I mentioned earlier that my little brother has Down syndrome. You know, I saw what it was like to have my mom have to fight for that. You know, but I also think you mentioned something about staff diversity. We do have some of the best staff I've ever seen here. You know, only 7% of it is really not white. Our student base is far different. There's 37% white students, 33% Asian, 13% Hispanic, 7.5% Black students. When we have a faculty of 89% white and 7% Asian, we are still leaving behind some of the other people, so they're not really able to identify necessarily the teachers. That said, I think there are things we can do in the shorter term, because hiring staff that is more diverse is a long game. So having more inclusive curriculum, learning about people who are Black and more than just Black History Month, discipline policies, really taking a look at how those impact students, and even dress code policies. I know ETHS recently did a revamp of their dress code policies to make them more inclusive. We should be giving more support to EL students and families as well. And the SEED program is fantastic. It would be really nice if we could make it a little more mandatory for teachers. Thanks.
Thank you. Whoa, they listen to me better than just about any forum I've ever been to. Thank you. Ms. Nelson.
Wow. This question speaks directly to me as a mom. I am a mom of 2 young Black men. And when we talk about diversity and equity, I want to first say that often these 2 things get linked together, but they can be 2 very separate issues. When you speak about diversity and equity, make no mistake, the research is there. When you hire and retain diverse staff, it closes the achievement gap. Hard stop. Currently in our district, our young Black men, which could be my children, are 20 points lower in ELA and mathematics. Having just 1 matched teacher in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade can be the difference from a young Black man dropping out of high school by 40%. They are 24% more likely to go to college. These are my kids I'm talking about here. But closing the achievement gap and diversifying staff helps all children. It helps our schools. For every new graduate that we get in our high schools, That's almost like $100,000 net positive to our tax base. Better scores equals better schools equals better communities. How do we do it? We change our hiring game. I agree with everyone here. We need to open up our hiring pools. We need to go to, stop.
Thank you. Ms. Amiwala.
So, without echoing what everyone said, I'll start off with one of my, it was like number 3 ranked on my list of points, so I'll start with that. But we should look into hiring a diversity and inclusion part-time administrator. District 65, Evanston School District, just hired one, and it's had a tremendous impact because apart from just hiring teachers that look like us, which I agree is a very long-term goal, the short-term solution is implementing cultural competency trainings, which I'm sure that our school is already doing. However, with this, it's not quid pro quo. It's not either or. Like, it's not like we are losing one teacher to hire another. It's a matter of once, a teacher leaves, and it's the aspect of once you're hiring more teachers. We should also look into having a more strong partnership with the Golden Apple Scholarship Program. That program looks into placing students in the CPS, but also suburban school district areas where 30% or more of the students are on free or reduced lunch, so come from the the lower socioeconomic background. And that's what Niles North High School and D219 does to retain and recruit their very diverse and equitable staff. So once I moved to Middleton, although a lot of my teachers did not look like me, they treated me with the utmost amount of respect, and I have just tremendous things to say about the teachers in this district. So just because that there is a lack of diversity, it doesn't mean that there's a shortcoming or quality in teachers. So again, creating partnerships with Golden Apple and look into hiring a diversity and inclusion part-time administrator.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
I think there are a few pieces to play here. I think Ms. Nelson is absolutely correct. You have to change your hiring game. I think there's a couple pieces there, though. There's attraction and there's retention. I kind of have a unique perspective on this. I mean, my wife and I moved to Skokie because of racial diversity. We wanted that. I started my teaching career at Thornridge High School in Dalton, Illinois, which is a predominantly black, middle-class working community. And then I shifted my teaching career up to New Trier High School. We've got the SEED program up there, but I don't know if you've noticed, it's still a pretty white, non-diverse community. I was a white male teacher in a school of mostly white teachers. I'm a white teacher in a mostly, predominantly school of white teachers. So how do you do that? You do have to expand the hiring pool, but you really need to focus and put into place mechanisms that address some of the institutional racism that exists in our society. It's there. It exists. I've seen it my entire career. And if you don't have very specific hiring practices and training practices and outreach programs to address the issue, it's not going to change.
Thank you. So this worked out a little bit weirdly. So Mr. Easton takes this next question first, and we're going to go back to the order that we were doing before. And this is kind of an umbrella. A few questions evidently were combined. So think of it as ways to make the school more welcoming. And here's the question. People have asked about creating a PTO, about use of the school facilities, and involving community members without children. How would you make our schools more welcoming?
It's a great question. I've always been a fan of art on the walls, plants in the halls. I think you have to open up the doors. I've worked in the community as a Cub Scout den leader and have witnessed firsthand how our schools are not open and are not welcoming places, frankly. And they need to be. They really, really need to be. The place was built on our dollars, with our blood and our sweat and all that. There are places where any adult should be able to plan use. That doesn't mean that anybody can walk into the building at any time of day. Of course not. We live in a society where safety and security are paramount. But at the same time, schools are community places. They need to be community places. I once was a member of the PTA before it went away. I was very unhappy when it did. So I think there's a lot that we can do to make the school more open, more welcoming. But I think there needs to be an administrative will to do that, and I think that has to start at the board.
Thank you. Ms. Amiwala.
So, a strong board of education has different parts of the community represented to ensure all stakeholders in the community are involved in the decision-making process. And I personally am excited to bridge the gap and serve as that voice on the community. One of the best ways I think to engage former parents who had students in the school district but are currently not in the district anymore, yet were just as involved when their kids were students in the district, is by forming an alumni relations network. So as soon as I graduated Niles North High School, I got a survey in my email, and it was like, oh, fill this out, and we'll send you like volunteer opportunities, ways to stay engaged and stay involved. And the same survey was sent to my parents as well. We should implement that model in District 73.5 because a lot of the people, even in this crowd right now, I know your students aren't in 73.5 anymore. You're still engaged and involved, but how do we maximize on our resources? Our community it's a half district at best, but maximizing on our resources, ensuring that all members of the community are engaged and involved, and it's making so there's a district-wide newsletter that's sent to all families, regardless of whether they have current students in the districts or if they're just community members. So I think that's the best way to bridge that gap.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson. Can you repeat the question again, please? Sure. People have asked about creating a PTO, use of the school facilities, and involving community members without children. How would you make our schools more welcoming?
I'm gonna first start by saying I agree with Paul with making our school more open. There are many things that we can do to outreach into our community, especially those members in our community that may not have children in these schools anymore. This is where that PTO piece plays an important role, because we have probably many craftsmen, artists, gardeners, various people that have various skills that they would be willing to volunteer their time to our students if someone just reached out to them and asked. I would definitely think that the board should take some kind of direction in forming some type of formal community outreach program to make sure we do tap into that group of people. In addition to that, our PTO, bringing it back. I agree with Paul, we need one. In District 65, for example, the number of programs and services that are provided by PTOs for their students is unmeasurable. We can't expect the school to just carry the load alone. Having a parent group that is working with the kids, for the kids, and with the school, reciprocally with the district, is something that all of our students need. I think I'm done. I think I answered the whole question.
Ms.
All right.
Arias.
Thanks for asking this question. I think it's important that we do make the schools more welcoming. I think we will all agree that it is something that needs to be done. I know there is work being done right now to help create that PTO over here, right? She's reached out quite a bit in many different ways, but I think she's done a great job trying to figure out how to get translators to have more outreach in the community. I think more parents need to have a voice in this community, and that's just really great. Hats off to you for doing that. It's really great. And you know, I think inviting community members that don't have kids in this district is really important. Their tax money still goes to these schools. We should never forget that. And just, you know, as a board member, just inviting people into the schools and into the conversation, that's so important. I know our neighbor doesn't have kids in the district at all, but you know, every time she sees our kid pop outside, she gets so happy. And you know, I would imagine that they would want to feel welcome in the schools. Just figuring out ways to get more of the community activated, so it'd be so great.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
Earlier, I brought up having a community outreach program spearheaded by the board and maybe a particular board member head. You know, whether it's a community outreach program or a PTO, I think that there's such a diverse and vast wealth of knowledge, like as Kelly said, that's eager to volunteer. You know, I think we can use these untapped resources to oversee projects, to do research, to find sponsorships, even to solicit particular jobs. I was at a meeting a couple of months ago, a district meeting, and it was brought up by a member of the board to look for a consultant to market this district better. And my first thought was, why go out and pay someone? Let's look in the district first to see if someone is willing to volunteer who has the capacity or the abilities to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
So PTO and PTA has been a topic for a long time, and I'm a huge supporter of the idea of forming a PTO or a PTA. And I think the district needs to make that organization feel very welcomed and at home. But it is not the district's responsibility or really capability to create type of an organization. So we look forward to collaborating with you as you create that. So other opportunities besides a structure like PTO, PTA, there are nights that we have within the district that are like coding nights or plays or other types of things that allow parents of all different types to come together and meet new people and experience the school's facilities. The same rules that apply to having a coding night, as opposed to have anyone, applies to anyone within the district. So if you want to have a basketball night and it's just you and your friends, you can do that as well and use the facilities in the same way as a parent or teacher within the district.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
I think a couple of things that we can do that are kind of practical is, one, we could have more open house opportunities in all the different schools in the district, where parents and community members could actually come into the different schools and see the facilities, see what's going on. The other thing would be fairs, whether it's international night, whether it's a science fair, whether it's a history fair. And again, that would kind of open the doors of all the schools so that parents, stakeholders, community members, everyone could see it. And then the third one, which is kind of out there, like at the high school in Evanston, we have what we call Parent Shadow Day, where parents actually go to school with the kids. And I think that would be an awesome thing. Even a kindergartner, like your parents would come to school with you for a day. So I think it's opportunities like those that would allow the community members to be in the schools and in the facilities, and they could kind of see what's going on.
Thank you. Question first. Our district has lost some amazing teachers to other districts. What are your plans for teacher retention?
Well, that's a very heavy question. It's a very good one as well. I think the first thing would be to have an open dialogue in terms of negotiations with teachers and what they are seeking, and sort of be asking them to present like the respective offer that was presented that has made this other school offer a bit more presentable, and also through that having more thorough exit interviews to sort of see if maybe there's a trend or a pattern that makes it so that all teachers are leaving for like this specific reason or that specific reason, and also taking that actually into account and consideration and evaluating the content of what is in that exit interview. With that, again, I think the open dialogue comes from if a teacher does present like, hey, I got this offer from a different school district, is there a point in them bringing it up? Like, will District 73.5 seek to match that or perhaps negotiate as well? That's something that's up for consideration. I think is something that's worth looking into, especially for some of our teachers who have been serving and educating in the district for a long period of time.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson.
One of the ways that I would seek to work with retaining teachers is to first start working with the idea of mentor teachers and doing midpoint satisfaction checks with teachers as they are currently working in the districts. Sometimes if we wait until they're already ready to leave, we haven't had the feedback that we needed to make the change to actually get them to stay. Currently, about 80% of school districts don't have any supports built in to work with and maintain and retain their teachers. That's something we need to purposely plan to do if we want to retain the diverse staff that we so desperately need. Teachers that are not satisfied are 25% more likely to change careers. We need supports, We need training for the teachers who are in the building to make sure that they are welcoming and that something is not misinterpreted between a new teacher, just because of just simple, for lack of a better term, ignorance. A simple communication, a dialogue. And finally, just making sure that we are not asking teachers to carry the load alone. We need to recognize that there is diversity within diverse groups. And so you just cannot assume because you hire, for example, a Latinx teacher, that that person can speak to all the needs of every single Latinx child in that school. And we should not put that load or weight on them.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
I think one of the ways we can make teachers, we've lost some amazing teachers, so plan for attention, is to make them feel valuable. That is, I think, the most important thing we can do for teachers. And I'm not talking from the parents, I'm talking from, the administrators, and we just really should be asking them for their feedback more constantly. I'm not a teacher, I'm in business, and what I do is try to ask for feedback more frequently from the employees to make sure that they're feeling good about working with me, and I'm feeling good about working with them. So I think making a teacher feel valuable and listening to their voice is so important. Another thing we can do is just make sure that we're offering training. We're really offering cutting-edge training for the skills that they can use to grow. I think it's really important to want teachers to grow within your district. You start a teacher young, and honestly, just watching them grow is something really great. And being competitive, like Bushra said, making sure that we're being competitive in that field. But make them feel valuable. They deserve it.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
I think we should give the teachers what they need to succeed, whether it's resources or professional development. I think we should make teachers feel more appreciated than what they are. There should be an open communication with teachers and administration. And, I think teachers should be part of the process of any practices or curriculum that's coming into our district. Lastly, and this is just my thing, I think you need to provide teachers with the support they need in the sense of teachers' aides who have detailed guidelines for their roles and responsibilities. I know when I was a teacher's aide in Middleton, my first day at school, they told me I would be with one student, and then they left me. And I was with that one student for the whole year without any definite role, without any definite responsibilities. Luckily for me, I had an education background, and that helped immensely. But teachers aides wear the same hats as teachers, just on a smaller scale. And I think that would be beneficial for teachers in the long run.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
So I do think that we can do a better job in the district with exit interviews and understanding why teachers are leaving. Sometimes it's difficult to get hold of them after they left, but maybe we can be a little more aggressive at counting them, because it is really important to understand why people leave. In order to retain talent, I agree completely with Carla, but I want to say that in the act of making them feel valued, I think we need to acknowledge their success more often. I think that this district is fundamentally amazing. I mean, the reason why we moved here is this is an incredibly special place. And I think that the reason why it's special is because of the teachers and, frankly, because of the community. I mean, look at these awesome candidates that are running for board. Look at the awesome engagement you guys bring to board meetings and different community events and stuff like that. It's a special place all around. You don't have that in many districts. So we should be acknowledging the teachers' success and then also offering them diverse opportunities that can come in the form of mentoring, that can also come in the form of trying something new and allowing them to take some risks as well, because we all know that we want to change for the better, and that can come from anywhere.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
As a teacher who has left the school to teach somewhere else, I've got a few thoughts here, but one of which is, yes, the obvious question, why are they leaving? Exit interviews is one thing, but at that point, it's too late. So So other questions you need to ask. How do you nurture leadership? How do you empower teachers? I work with some great principals, not just at New Trier. There was a great one there, Jan Borhoff. At Thornridge, I worked with Dick Keller and Gwen Lee, who was Illinois Principal of the Year, and they nurtured talent. Dick Keller was wonderful at pretending that he was an idiot. And he would say to the teachers, I have no idea what I'm doing. You people are really the ones in charge. How do you challenge teachers to reinvent themselves? You know, in teaching, you have to reinvent yourself about every 7 years, the research says. How do you do that within your institution? You know, teaching is a brutal, brutal job. It is not an easy job. And the truth is, in the state of Illinois, we're losing teachers faster here than anywhere else in the nation. And that is not going to get better. You have our state legislators to thank for that and the funding of teaching and education. There's lots of reasons why. But I think you have to start within the school. You have to look for those open doors. Are the administrators' doors open? Are they listening to teachers? Are they paying attention to what's happening in the school? And as you guys are parents, I don't need to tell you that.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Nelson.
You skipped percent.
You thought my answer was going to be brilliant, and that's.
I checked your name off. Sorry, go ahead.
So what I think you need to do, or school district, what we need to do is create an atmosphere where teachers are invested and that they want to stay here. And I think that will go a long way in retaining or talented staff of teachers. The other thing I think is offer opportunities for professional development, one that they really want to buy into. The third and final thing that I think we need to do is, you know, we have the 5 Essentials survey, and as a school district, we really need to look at that because some of the components of the 5 Essentials survey, the teachers give feedback about how they feel about the school and about safety and everything about the school. So I think that's a huge way that as a school district, we should get information about how the teachers feel, and in so doing, we can do a better job of retaining teachers.
Thank you. I think I got this right now. Ms. Nelson. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing our school district? What is the number one issue that you would address and how?
Some of the challenges facing our school district are already mentioned tonight. Transparency, communication, celebrating and promoting our achievements, and recruiting and retaining diverse staff. If I wanted to speak to what I think is the biggest challenge we have as a district, it's our transparency and our communication with all of our stakeholders. A school district is only as strong as all of its working parts. If the district is not communicating and hearing from the parents and working and talking and hearing from the teacher, then the wheel is not working as it is intended. And so one of the things that we need to work to do is some of the steps we've already taken, like posting the board packet. But one of the things that I would ask to change is let's post the board packet and make all the links active so when people are actually looking at the board packet, they can also see some of the documents that are also being up for discussion. Another thing we can do is right now, if you looked in our district, you don't know who our board members are. There's not a picture of us, there's a picture of them, I'm sorry, or names or anything along those lines. We should be making ourselves more accessible. We should be finding more opportunities to talk to our community and to our teachers. Our teachers are amazing. They are the heartbeat and the lifeblood of this school. We should find more opportunities for them to outreach to the community as well as to the board and to the administration and other stakeholders.
Thank you. Ms. Arias.
Like I said in my opening statement, I think one of our biggest areas of opportunity is communication. That means we should be better about reaching out to parents, making them feel more welcome, making sure that we're not just over communicating with email. There are other ways that people communicate. Not everyone has access to email. I think it's really important that we're realistic, making sure we're giving translations and things like that. So I think we need to be better about communicating with the community, just in general. Also getting more teacher feedback. from, things they would like to see. You mentioned, I think you talked about coffee with the board maybe, but having that for teachers as well, I think that's really important. I've talked to a lot of parents in the community, and they've also mentioned there feels like there's a lack of communication between one school and the next, and we should really be offering more of a bridge for that gap. I think people want to feel like they're communicated with and not at, and so having more back and forth conversations instead of just one way, I think that's really important. Having more forums, but instead of just one way, again, having back and forth dialogue so we can learn from each other.
Thank you. Mr. Wash.
I have about 3 different challenges that I've written down. The first one was to find a way to implement STEAM in daily curriculum. Back in January, for the first forum, I suggested that STEAM become a special. And I felt really bad the following month, in February, I see poor Miss Anderson standing up, just justifying her job. With that being said, I know that we have Ozobots and Dashbots at Middleton, and so I'm wondering if we could have at least some kind of coding exploration program until they get the full steam ahead, kind of. The next was a lack of transparency between the board and the community. And, I had written down kind of what Kelly had said. Posted individual emails of the board members for like 65 and 73 does, 68, 79, 68, 69, 72, and 73 have board member picks. But here's another one. Reducing our operational costs and spending more on instructional costs. Right now, we're spending $273 less on instructional costs than in 2015 than we did 2017. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
I 100% believe the biggest thing for the district or the board to be working on in this next round is community engagement. There is something missing in the sense that I think everyone in the room would agree that we are an amazing district, but sometimes we feel like there is this wall or something between the board and the community, and it's not intentional. I think one of the challenges with fixing that, to be realistic about it, is that you're a board and you have to agree on things before you say them back to the community. Or if you're in a forum like this, you don't know what types of questions are going to be asked, and you're going to have to respond to any types of communication. I'm just laying out the problem. I do think that there's ways that we can improve. I think the district in the past did try a night where we had a one-way communication from the community, where we received lots of questions and we tried to email back answers. And I think we agreed, both as a community and as a board, that that wasn't hitting the mark. So we have to find ways where we allow for the community to feel heard, and that we're acting fast enough, which is another issue with this community engagement, because oftentimes we hear, but we are not acting quick enough because there's just structures that are in place where a board can't, meet unless it's in an open setting, and you have to do it in the public and things like this to be respectful of the laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
I think the biggest challenge we face in our district right now is trying to incorporate STEAM and STEM into the district while not cutting other programs that are very, very good and very relevant and very important to everyone in the community. And then the other thing that I think the challenge is making sure that whatever decisions we're making, they're being fiscally responsible so that 4 or 5 years down the line, our reserves are not depleted while the state of Illinois continues to have funding issues.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
I have the misfortune of spending more waking hours at my school than I do at my home. But because of that, I can tell you exactly what the issues are at my school. not having lived in this school or worked in this school, I don't know that I can honestly tell you the number one issue in the school. I have my own personal ideas. I believe that kids need to have more time to play, to be creative, to be thoughtful, to explore things like the robotics or whatever programs it is that they feel like they want and they need. But to really know and understand that answer, I think we have to listen. And so I guess I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, is to find a way to open up those avenues of communication so that we can listen to what all the members of the community in the school are saying. That's the kids, that's the teachers, that's the administrators, that's everyone who works in a support staff position in the school. That's everyone. And until you do that, I don't think you'll ever really know. I think you're just guessing.
Thank you. Ms. Amiwala.
I believe that most of the challenges that are facing District 73.5 is exactly where our opportunities lie. So one of the challenges of having a tax base that is so predominantly based off of residential homes, as opposed to a mixture with small businesses, is resources. So the opportunity comes in with partnerships. Partnership with other schools through, again, the national initiative, Classrooms First. Partnership with District 219, I switched it. Community schools is with other districts, and Classrooms First is with District 219. It's also a partnership with former parents and community members. It's also partnerships with, for example, Golden Apple for recruiting and retaining more diverse and extremely qualified staff that meets the standard that District 73.5 has set. It's partnerships with Little Bits National Technology that's a free way to implement STEAM curriculum after school. Again, it's a nice short-term solution as we build to a long-term solution of integrating STEM. So with Little Bits, for example, you can just have any teacher or volunteer come into the classroom and teach students interactively how to make like a prosthetic arm or how to cultivate stem cells in an online petri dish and such. So partnerships is where our greatest opportunity lies. It's really a matter of seeking out all of the plethora of national resources we have, and being in Skokie, we are in the hub of partnerships and resources. It's a matter of seeking and reaching out.
Thank you. So that turns out to have been the last question, since we need to have summaries and conclusions. I was told by our card readers that we had over 40 questions, and that was only just number question 7 that got answered. So I know you still have a lot of questions. Your candidates promised they can stay after, but now we start the summaries. They get 60 seconds each, timekeepers, and we start with Ms. Amiwala.
So my education in District 73.5 is something that my 3 siblings and I hold near and dear to our hearts. And I want to be able to pay it forward in the role in impacting the education experience for another student. To me, it comes down to the ability to pay it forward to the next generations of students who go through and graduate from District 73.5. I entered this race as one of the most qualified candidates, as I've been serving on multiple national boards for the past 3 years, specialize in social and emotional learning, governing and policy work, and I bring forth a plethora of community partnerships through, again, Community Schools Initiative and Little Bit STEM curriculum. I seek to serve as a voice for all members in the community, but most importantly, voices from immigrant families, non-native English speakers, and people who come from the lower middle class family, which makes up about 50% of our student population, according to district statistics. I ran my campaign with input from parents and members in the community, and not teachers yet for the sake of being a candidate, and I've been privileged enough to have been recognized in national, I thought it was in the 30s, but yes, thank you.
Ms. Nelson.
I feel like I've been put through the meat grinder. Thank you. I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to all of you for your engagement. Having everyone in this room shows what an amazing community we are a part of. I think it would be an honor to serve this community. I moved here because of the diversity. I moved here because of the neighborly feel. I moved here because it felt like it made me nostalgic for the childhood that I had. If elected to this board, I will work tirelessly to deliver the transparency, opportunity, and the commitment to diversity and equity and community that this community so desperately seeks. Equally important, I will support and empower our teachers. What's our goal here? Our goal is to have an amazing district, to have amazing schools, but most importantly, prepare our children to compete in the global community. So when they leave our world, our district, they are prepared for high school, college, career, whatever what meets them. Our world is changing rapidly. To build a better student and to build a better school, maybe we need to begin by building a better board.
Thanks. Ms. Arias.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone that's here today. I know it's kind of late on a school night, so thank you. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters and the McMahon Teachers Union for allowing us to be here tonight. It is my hope that this is only the beginning of continued dialogue and increased communication between those elected to the board, the teachers, and the community. If I am elected, it would be my honor to work towards that goal of listening to all voices who should be heard. In addition, I want to reiterate my commitment to also increasing transparency, focusing on issues of equity, enhancing learning opportunities for all students, and helping the district make sound financial decisions. You know, as a kid, I remember watching my mom fight so hard against the school district simply to get the educational opportunities she felt like we deserved. She worked multiple jobs at the time, so it was very time-consuming for her as well. It is my belief that no parent should ever have to fight against the school district, but rather be welcome to work alongside of it. It is my hope that my presence on the board can serve as a welcome to those who have been left out in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wash.
What I lack in my orchard skills, I make up for passion. And I am passionate about this. You know, I dare my students to dream on a daily basis. Many of them come from war-torn countries. I dare my children to dream. And I want to help the dreams of our district students come to fruition by advocating for practices and curriculum, especially for them to compete in an ever-changing world. I want to champion for the teachers, giving them the resources they need to be successful. You know, if you elect me, I will promote transparency, building that bridge between district and community. And I think my background in accounting will allow me to be engaged fiscally responsible.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
Being on the board has been one of the greatest experiences of my life. I want to not only leverage those experiences and help a new generation of board members change the way we operate, but do it in a way that is responsible for how boards ought to operate. They are a team. They do things in the open, and they ought to be transparent. I have to say that hearing things like the board has not been transparent in the past, I take it not necessarily personally, but it's hard to hear. And if that is the way the community feels, then we ought to do everything that we can to make it feel like it's transparent. And I would like to take the successes in the past, like where we're sitting now, and move us into the future by collaborating with the new board.
Thank you. Mr. Lemke.
I want to thank everyone who came out to this candidate forum, because when I was a writing candidate 2 years ago, I was swept into office by my name recognition. You guys can laugh at any moment. So at this point, to see the turnout of folks who have an interest in seeing the candidates who are going to be on the school board, I think it's awesome, and I think it's a credit to how passionate people feel about our community and about the school board. So I'm honored to be a part of this group of folks who are running to be on the school board, and if re-elected, I'd love to continue the journey.
Thank you. Mr. Easton.
Do I have the final word on this? Good Lord.
Oh, yes, you do.
All I will say is that, first of all, this has been great. It's been great fun. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I know that all of my colleagues up here, we have campaign material outside. So please make sure you pick up something from everyone that's out there. And, you know, what can I say? This is just a lot of fun to sit here and just answer questions and talk to people. I think that we could move the board meetings into a space like this that's larger and more welcoming would be a good change, a good start. But it's been a long night, and thank you everyone for coming, and I will stop talking now.
Woo! Okay, so everyone, I want you to hang on for just a couple of minutes. We'll be quick, but we've got some thank yous and a couple of announcements. First of all, would all of the candidates please stand? Could we please give them a huge round of applause? So I'm so impressed, and everyone in this room knows that these days to stand for any office takes such guts and such passion. And these are your neighbors. So I'm so tickled to have heard the answers that I heard, the great questions that we got. The next thank you is to Elizabeth Myers School. Can't really stand, but I'm so grateful for